7 years ago, The Last of Us was released on PlayStation 3. The game has become one of the most awarded and loved games of all time. The brutality of the world and the well-written characters struck a chord with millions of gamers. Some wanted a sequel so they could spend more time with the characters and further the story. Others wanted the game to just stay by itself as a standalone game, where it's left up to interpretation for certain things, including the future of those characters. I stood somewhere in the middle of that. I wanted a sequel only for gameplay's sake. I thought the story ended up pretty good in the first game. It wasn't like tightly wrapped up with a bow on top, but I had no desire to see any more really for the story. However, the sequel was eventually announced at PlayStation Experience 2016, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't immediately hyped and excited. The characters were older, the gameplay looked amazing, the visuals looked like they were pushing the PS4 to its absolute limits, and I couldn't wait for the game to come out. After several delays and a bunch of leaks that ruined the story for some people, the game's finally here. I wanted to fully experience it for myself, for my own opinions, not taking into account what the internet's saying at the current moment. So after completing the game, here are my full, honest thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2. When you boot up The Last of Us Part 2 on your PlayStation, it becomes apparent immediately that you're playing one of the best looking games of the current day. I played the game on a PS4 Pro with HDR, and the game easily dances with photorealism in some regards. Mostly the foliage and like the abandoned cars and man-made structures you'll come across. Even the water reacts realistically. It's pretty impressive. The character models are the real star of the show though. They're brought to life with these high quality visuals and industry leading animations. Seeing how blood would react after a hit or a stab, or how a character's eyes would look in the right light. It makes the game look next gen in some ways that even next gen games we've seen for the PS4 and Xbox Series X haven't even reached yet. The workbench has been talked about a lot, and it does deserve praise. The animations of switching between weapons and upgrading them looks amazing, although the character blocks out the actual upgrade process sometimes, so I feel that's kind of weird, or almost like they were cheating to hide some of the animations. The game runs at 30 FPS unfortunately, but you can see why with the visuals and the fact that it's running and looking this amazing on a 7-year-old platform. There is motion blur and film grain. Luckily you can adjust the motion blur from either having it set to full or turning it all the way off. There's no setting for film grain unfortunately, which does kind of irk me. I like my presentation crystal clear, but it's not a deal breaker. The same can't be said for the attention to detail though. The attention to detail in this game is incredible. When you take into account all the animations and the small details that have gone into this world, the crafting is next level. I came across a small abandoned kiddie pool at a house, and to my surprise there were moving tadpoles inside the kiddie pool. Stuff like that is amplified throughout the whole game, and it shows how crazy the detail is in this game and how far Naughty Dog will go to make something look amazing. And there's other stuff I can't talk about because I'm going to try and keep this review spoiler free, but the detail is honestly next level and one of the most impressive games I've seen on any platform in 2020. The gameplay has been significantly revamped to feel familiar but also evolved. It's tense, uncomfortable, and requires precision. They've added new features such as going prone, jumping, and hiding in tall grass. A lot of these come from Uncharted 4 and have been in other games for as long as gaming's been around, but they've been implemented into this game in a way that feels natural and helps the overall experience. The melee combat's been changed a little bit so you feel more nimble since you're playing as Ellie, who's younger and faster than Joel in the first game. So now there's an actual dodge button. It's not triangle like in the first game, it's actually the left bumper or left trigger depending on how you play. And this combined with the wider range of melee weapons you use can lead to some gruesome kills and some very satisfying combat. The guns are back and they feel just as deadly, and they can be customized even further. For example, a scope on your hunting rifle can help you take shots from further away. It can even help your aim when you're not scoped in, just because you have that extra accuracy for Ellie to use. Your bow can be upgraded to shoot farther. There's even an option where it'll show you where to shoot so you can gauge the shot distance properly, and the shot will hit far away targets. Ellie still has her switchblade, so now stealth is back and, in my opinion, better than ever. There's no need for shivs, at least for the most part. The switchblade lets you take out clickers and other enemies quicker than when Joel would have to craft a shiv to take out his clicker, or stealth kill them and wait forever. I actually enjoy the brutality of this game. I know Naughty Dog was going on record saying they're not using the word fun to describe it, but being put into a combat sandbox like that, where you can kind of just play around with the enemies, you have to take it serious or else you will die. I played the game on hard, not survivor, but I'll go back and play on survivor later once the trophies are actually in. But the gameplay, I do find it satisfying. Like, you can shoot someone, for example, in their leg, and they will kneel down and drop. You can shoot off a leg and they might still be alive, or when you shoot them with the killing blow, it doesn't instantly kill them. They might scream for a few seconds because they just lost their arm or a major artery just got hit. The AI will even call out their friend's name if they see them get shot, and it becomes unsettling. Your AI companions are also much better this time around. They'll actually take out some enemies for you and help you out in stealth. Way better than the first game did. So I have to give them props for that. They also don't kind of do the immersion breaking move where they'll walk right next to an enemy, but because the game knows that would be unfair, they just look at each other and keep going. That doesn't happen nearly as much. I actually can't recall it happening to me on my playthrough. The AI pretty much just stayed back and let me make the first move, or they might take out someone if no one else saw. So it was pretty good. And the dogs in this game. Yeah, the dogs are not as big of a nuisance as I thought they would be. If they do smell your scent, all you gotta do is throw like a ball or something to distract them, and they'll lose your scent that quick. They'll go back to just helping the people search around. I did have to put down some dogs, and yeah, I didn't take any joy in killing the dogs. The last thing I want to do in the game is have to reenact the Old Yeller, but it is there for the immersion, and the squeals they make when they die is heartbreaking but also realistic, so it is very immersive. I'll say that.
Somebody kill my dog. We got company.
The story. This is where I'm going to spend most of my review, because this is where I have to have the biggest amount to talk about. The story in this game is a huge mixed bag, unfortunately. I actually like the story that they were telling with this game. I like the eventual fates of what happens, what's written out, what happens. But this game suffers from the absolute worst pacing in any Naughty Dog game released. And I would say the story is far too ambitious with the amount of characters and events happening and going on. It becomes overbearing. This game is almost 30 hours long, and it shouldn't be. There's far too much stuff here. I'm gonna mention slight spoilers. I'm not gonna say anything that happens, but I have to bring certain things up because of how the story goes. So just putting it out there, slight spoilers. So the event that happens in Jackson, I saw it coming. Like, even before the leaks, I had a feeling it was gonna happen. But after that, the story becomes just even more of an incoherent mess. There's subplots and side characters who are here one moment, disregarded the next. The game needed to remain focused on its characters, but it just jumps around. It jumps around in time so much, it's distracting. You'll be doing one level, up flashback 3 years ago, up flashback 5 years ago. It keeps doing this, and it doesn't stop. It does this the entire game, and it's not only a pace breaker, but the stuff they're taking you back to, half of it wasn't needed, or if it needed to be there, it could have just been in the beginning. If this game was actually told out in proper order, I feel like it would have been a lot better. But because of how disjointed the storytelling is in this game, it just hurts the experience. The game also is trying way too hard in sending its message. It wants you to understand the character's point of view, but it's obvious. Like, if you can think critically, you can understand these characters' points of view, their motivations. You understand that. They hammer it home like you're supposed to just blindly be in love with Joel and Ellie against all other facts and logic, when even in the first game, we know that what Joel did at the end of the game was morally wrong. You understand it, but you know it's morally wrong. And in this game, it almost feels like they thought all fans have this romantic view of Joel and Ellie, like they can do no wrong. So they kind of just shit on the fans' expectations of these characters. They go above and beyond to make them feel almost like the villain, but in this world, there are no heroes, there are no villains, so it feels like it's wasted. We don't need hours of you pointing out that this character isn't bad, or this character actually is bad, etc., etc. It's so forced and in your face with its message. It's like, we get it, revenge is bad. We get it, there's no heroes in this world. It's the lengths they go for these messages brings you across a civil war, love triangles, unexpected alliances. It's all this bloat that hurts the overall package severely and almost irredeemably. This game feels like 2.5 games crammed into one, and it doesn't cram it in like with care. It's just crudely jammed in with no actual effort spent on trying to make it all narratively flushed together. It's just like it plays out like a very mid TV show that's just trying to be mature so it can get the top spot. It doesn't work right. The execution is bad, and that combined with the pacing in a video game is one of my biggest pet peeves. I look at Uncharted 2. That game had great pacing. The story in that game actually wasn't the strongest Uncharted story, even out of the original trilogy. I would argue that Uncharted 2 maybe had the weakest story out of Uncharted 1 through 3, but the pacing, the way it was handled, it makes the game easily the best one out of those three. And this game is a good example of, it doesn't matter how good your story is, if the pacing is bad and your execution is bad, you just done this great story and wasted it for nothing. So there's another character you play as in this game. I'm not going to say who it is, but you'll find out if you play the game. And the game tries so hard to make you root for her. And I'm like, okay, I get it. There's no point in this game where I hated that character. Even when a certain thing happens in the beginning, I didn't hate this character because her motivations were perfectly explained. It makes sense. I get it. But the game acts like you're going to hate this character just because of what they did. And I'm sure some people did, but I didn't. Like, I get it. I didn't want her to do it, but I get it. So it's almost like they don't take the fan base as critically thinking human beings, which I find kind of insulting a little bit. Like, people aren't just playing this like, haha, gungo brr. Like, people actually understand the maturity of this game's story, of this world, of how humanity can be. So it feels like they were making this game, even though it's very mature. It feels like they were making this game for kids, just trying to hammer home certain messages. It feels weird. And I'm not talking about any of that agenda crap people are pushing. Like, I don't see any of that in this game, honestly. There's a few cringy lines at the beginning that I'd say fit into that category, but honestly, that's it. But yeah, if anything, this game trying to push their message, it makes Ellie out to be in the wrong a lot more, which I give them credit. That's a bold move to make, but like, it feels so forced. Like, I get it, but they're trying so hard to make the other character feel almost like the hero, when, I mean, compared to the stuff that Ellie and her company does, I can kind of see them doing that, but it's just, geez, guys, you didn't have to go through this amount of effort just to have people realize that, yeah, there's no heroes, no villains. Everybody can equally bring about the best and worst parts of humanity. There's flashbacks a whole bunch, like I talked about. There's flashbacks with Ellie and Joel. Those are some of my favorite parts in the whole game, just because of the story moments that happen during them, and because of just, it's nice to see those characters again. That's the main reason people like The Last of Us in the first place. And I will give credit to one flashback at the very end that wasn't a pace breaker, because even the ones that I liked were pace breakers, but there's one at the very end of the game that was done, I would say, perfectly. it actually brought tears to my eyes. I wasn't like full out crying, but there were definitely tears in my eyes. So I gotta give them credit for that. If a game can get me emotional enough to shed a few tears, it's doing something right. But that was only at the end, and even the first game got me at the end, not like that close to the end as this one, but still, it was there, so I'll give it credit for that. But this story, overall, it tells an okay story that is just, actually I'll take that back. It tells a good story, but it's marred by terrible pacing, being too ambitious, and failing on proper execution. I don't like it and I don't hate it. I'm just kind of indifferent because this game doesn't, when you look at a game like this that didn't need to exist in the first place, there are things you need to nail to justify its existence. In a story-based game like The Last of Us, a sequel needed to have its story pulled off with proper execution that is as good or better than the predecessor. And the game just flat out failed in that regard. There's no arguing that. The execution and pacing of this game was terrible. I know that doesn't bother some people as much. That's why I truly believe the people that gave this game a 10, I believe them. I understand why they gave it a 10. If pacing doesn't bother you, yeah, this game will easily be like an 8. If pacing and execution doesn't bother you, as long as like certain things are done, you're happy, alright, yep, 10. But for me, no. This game needed so much more for the story execution and for the pacing to be better, so I can't. I'm just very indifferent to this story. For a game that didn't need to happen, it doesn't justify its existence good enough for execution like this. It's worth mentioning that through my whole playthrough, I only encountered 2 bugs. One I was able to capture footage of. Ellie's arm just got stuck in a T-pose, not both of them, just one, no matter what I did. It was very weird. And the other one happened far later in the game, in spoiler territory, where I was trying to jump down and I ended up jumping somehow into this gray void and fell to my death. Luckily, I didn't get stuck there and it just restarted the checkpoint, but yeah, only 2 weird bugs. I also want to mention the accessibility options in this game. They deserve praise and to be mentioned, so I haven't really used that many, but the amount of options here that I've seen clips of and in the menu previews, it is very good. It needs to become a standard across the industry. So many more people can play this game. They have so many configurations. You can play the game with the controller upside down with just one hand. There's so many options here available. Options for players with low visibility. Apparently, there's options for you can play this game with nothing but sound. That is insane. Stuff like that needs to become more common because video games are art. They should be enjoyed. And when you have accessibility features like this, it opens up the medium to way more people than even some of the most common forms of art. I mean, you can't do this necessarily for a painting or for music. If someone's deaf, they can't hear the music. They can hear the vibrations, but that's about it. If someone's blind, they can't see a painting. But like with this game, it can be appreciated across a wide range of individuals. So it needs to be mentioned. I need to praise Naughty Dog for that. That is honestly amazing, and I hope that they get more recognition, and I hope more developers follow suit. It's something that needed to be done, and I'm glad it's been implemented, and this is just the first game with this many options. It's honestly amazing, and if you do suffer from disabilities, I recommend, please, in the comments below, leave your thoughts on if you've been able to take advantage of these features, and let me know how you feel. The Last of Us Part 2 didn't need to exist. You could argue that because of how this story turned out, maybe it shouldn't exist. But at the end of the day, I got an experience that had next level visuals, amazing immersive gameplay, and at the end of the day, the story wasn't bad, just had a very sloppy execution. I don't want to play this game through again completely. After I get the platinum, I probably will never play this game again. a full playthrough. There are certain chapters I would definitely go back and play again, and I bet I'll do that as soon as the PS5 patch is announced where it runs at 60 FPS. I also can't wait to see what they do with the Factions multiplayer standalone game, because the gameplay in this game is amazing, so I feel like that'll be a good time. I have to give this game a 7 out of 10, and it hurts to give a game like this that score because it does so much right, but it's a story-driven game, and they messed up the execution of the story. The rest of the stuff here is amazing, but bad pacing and execution just hold this game back. And when you take all that into consideration, when a story-based game can't get its story right, in a game that didn't necessarily need to exist, it kind of does a bad job pleading for its case to exist at all. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for giving my thoughts a fair listen. Let me know how you feel about the game in the comments. Try not to be on one of those blind sides that hate the game or love the game. Like, give your honest thoughts. And if you respect my thoughts, I can respect yours. Just please try and think for yourself. Don't just fall for the internet's mob culture. As I said in the review, critical thinking is important. So please tell me what your honest thoughts are on the game. If you liked it, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.